All right, so live streams. I just want to go ahead and give a full disclosure to y'all because this seems to be a misconception that pops up every now and then. Live streams are not lectures. So this is an asynchronous course. There are no lectures. That's why when you sign up for the course, it didn't say lectures are at these times. We did actually offer a course like that this summer. Didn't fill up. This course is meant for you to be studying on your own. So what's the purpose of a live stream? Well, these live streams are just office hours where we hold 5 office hours per week. 4 for me are live streams and 1 is in the STEM Center. So there are no lectures. There's nothing prepared for these live streams. These are simply here to answer questions. So what about course resources and like what are you supposed to do to help study? If you're the type of student that really needs a lecture, actually, if you go to the course resource under lessons, under each folder, you'll find a YouTube playlist. I got about over 300 videos covering Chem 1, Chem 2, Organic 1, Organic 2. The playlist kind of focus them in on those specific topics. There's your lecture component. The videos range anywhere from 3 minutes to 12 minutes, typically about 5 to 6 minutes. Very topical, focusing on one particular issue. The playlists tend to kind of focus them, so if there's a topic that has many subtopics, they'll be followed in a sequential order. So if you were to have a typical seated lecture, usually a 50-minute lecture is 20 minutes of straight lecture, which is what you would get from these videos, and then there's 30 minutes of me asking you questions and walking around the room and seeing what you're doing. Not exactly something I can practically do on a live stream. Now, most instructors are actually using MS Teams for this. I'm not a huge fan of MS Teams because as you can see from the stream quality here, it's actually a nice clean video. You can see what's on the board behind me. MS Teams inherently degrades the video quality simply because they they're designed to accommodate multiple video feeds at once. So this ensures a clear feed so you can see what's written. I also post these videos to a playlist that hasn't been created yet because this is the first video in the series. But if you ever miss a live stream, you can always go back into the course website. It'll be underneath the lessons tab. You can see the previous live streams. So the live streams here are more meant for you to ask questions. And if you're not able to make a live stream, that's fine. Email me a question and I will answer at the start of the live stream. And I do this as a kind of a courtesy to the people that can't make the live streams. At the start of each live stream, if I've got emails, I'll go ahead and answer all those email questions first. And then I'll start moving any questions I get in the chat. These are office hours. You have probably never had a single instructor tell you you were required to show up to office hours, and that's the same policy here. These are office hours. If these live streams don't do you any good, don't show up to them. You've got the videos, you've got the books, you've got the PowerPoints, there's Word documents on the course website that have a whole bunch of problems, and there's a solution key to go with it. You've got that to practice with. You've got the Webassign homework questions, which are for credit. They're kind of meant to incentivize you to at least try some problems. Those are also there to help you study. So these are the resources you have at disposal. But again, this is an asynchronous course. We can't set these live streams up as lectures because we haven't allotted that time for this course. We haven't told students you need to be here at this time. And it puts students who can't make this time at a disadvantage if I start lecturing. Now, the course itself, I know I'm going on a lot for a particular live stream. We'll get into what happens when I don't really have anything to talk about. 4 exams, 12% each. They're going to be online. You have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to take them. The homeworks are due the Thursday beforehand just to kind of incentivize you to go ahead and get the homeworks out of the way. Homeworks are 2.5%. Reason why I make them so low, I want you to try the homework. I don't want you to freak out about your grade. I want you to focus more on the understandings. So the homework's way low, the exam's way high. That said, if you go look at Rate My Professor, every single one of those reviews that says the homework is much harder than the exams is 100% correct. I have a lot of time to make you do homework problems. I have a lot of time to make you do those packet problems. An exam, you have an hour and 15 minutes. So I really can't give you these really hard, long, wandering questions because I'm really kind of focusing more on single concept understandings. The exams, 10 multiple choice questions, 2-point each for a total of 20 points. These are typically knowledge-based. Students hate them. I hate them, but they're a necessary evil because there's no partial credit with these. If you get them wrong, you get them wrong. The rest of the exam, the remaining 80% is free response. Sometimes, like the exam you got coming up next week, there's like 8 or 9 questions. There's a lot, but those questions typically aren't that hard. The correct answer is only worth 5%. So if you do a 10-point question, getting the right answer is only worth like half a point, and the correct sig figs is worth half a point. The remaining 9 points are showing your work, and you'll see this when you take the exams. There's a little link underneath the exam that says this is where you submit your work. You can get every single answer right on the exam, but if you don't submit your work, you're only going to get points for the right answers, and that leaves the remaining 90% missing. So do submit your work. The goal here is that, let's say, particularly with the last problems on the exam, they typically tend to be more steps. There's 3 concepts being assessed. Well, if you know concept 1 and 2, but you don't know 3, you're going to get the answer wrong. But I'm assessing concepts 1, 2, and 3. So it's not so important that you get the right answer as much that you have the correct setup. If your setup is correct, you're going to get a bulk of the points because you clearly understood the concept. It's just that the real world doesn't involve exams. Usually you would have more time. So I don't really see a reason to give you a strong penalty for getting a wrong answer when all your work is set up. Now, a big exception to this is going to be the final exam. The final exam, you're going to be able to submit work. The final exam actually are department assessment questions. It's a cumulative exam. You get an hour and 50 minutes to take it. It's all multiple choice. Submit work, I will give you partial credit where I can. Particularly, a lot of the distractors are meant to determine if you understood all the concepts because there may be multiple concepts assessed. But again, the final exam, when we get there, that's all multiple choice. The 4 exams throughout the semester, 10 multiple choice questions, and a smattering of free response depending on the concepts being tested. Now, this first exam is the easiest exam you're going to take this semester. Don't let that lull you into a false sense of security. But this is going to be much more akin to Chem 1 than anything else. So very simple equations, mostly algebraic rearrangement. Because I don't have a class where I can say this to you in person, I'll say it to you now. The whole stuff about converting between units of concentration, do not hyper focus on that. It's one multiple choice question. And I give you some hints in the notes about how to kind of guesstimate if your answer is reasonable. But second exam, third exam, they're going to build in difficulty. Third exam is going to be the hardest exam you take before the final. The fourth exam, if you can knock the third exam out of the park, fourth exam is super trivial. It's acid-base chemistry. It's a simplified version of the equilibrium that you'll be doing for test 3. Labs, those are lab kits you're going to find in the syllabus as well as on Webassign where you enter your answers to the lab. There are due dates. That said, these due dates are more of a suggestion for the first half of the course. I realize a lot of you are ordering your kits still. Some of you have just gotten your kit numbers. It's going to take a week or 2 for them to show up. Just shoot me an email for right now if you need an extension and just say, hey, I need the extension for my kit so I have the documentation. I'm not going to require you to provide documentation. That said, once we get to about 4 weeks into the course, I'm going to start enforcing those deadlines a bit harder. You need to start actually providing justification. Now, all the labs are up. So if you decide, hey, I'm going to be that precocious student, I'm going to knock it all out of the park the first 2 weeks, power to you. You're done with the lab for this semester. But that's kind of meant that if you have a week where you know you're going to be out of town, you can go ahead and do the lab in advance. As far as some of you have emailed me about the contents of lab kits, they haven't sent me a list, so I don't know. You're just going to have to contact the manufacturer. Generally, they ship with an actual list. Apparently, Carolina Biological has changed their policies in this regard. We're also kind of new to this voucher code. Typically, we make students pay for these things. So if you're curious why the voucher codes are what they are, like a week before the semester started, they just kind of said, hey, deal with it. So that's why it's kind of been a rough rollout. Webassign is free though. So we actually were able to get a grant for this. So your Webassign should be visible now. If it's not, shoot me an email. It was locked out until 8 a.m. this morning. Technically, classes did not start for the second summer semester until 8 a.m. this morning, so that's why these deadlines that's why the date was the way it was. Homeworks are due, again, the Thursday before you take the exam, so you have all week to work on them. I'm not inclined to grant extensions on Webassign, especially now because I know that with Webassign it's all been paid for. Do email me if you have technical issues, but generally speaking, that's why I give you all the homework to do. Now, in terms of guidance of what am I supposed to be doing each week? The syllabus just kind of gives these broad strokes. Yes, it does. And the reason it gives the broad strokes is that it's hard to parse out how quickly you would understand the material. And I'm saying this as someone who's actually much more of an in-person instructor. In person, I can assess how well you're understanding the material before I move to the next part. I know how the pieces should fit together to make you understand it better, but I don't necessarily know from semester to semester which piece is going to give you the hold up. Some semesters, they knock it out of the parks with IMFs, and then suddenly they're having issues with phase diagrams. I've had the reverse. So to tell you do A, B, C, and D, it should take you 2 days. Well, that's a lie. I don't know how long they're going to really take you to understand it. So to kind of give you guidance in this regard, each week you're going to get a course announcement that says you need to cover the following topics. And for me, I think those are reasonable topics to cover during the time frame in question. You're also going to have a discussion board, and discussion boards you're going to have 2 a week. This week you've just got 1, but you're going to have 2 a week. And with the discussion boards here are attendance. Do them. There are due dates associated with them. If you cannot complete the discussion board by the due date, just type for attendance. If you go into the syllabus, you'll see this. You have up until the final exam to redo any discussion board at any point in the semester for full credit. The point here is not to penalize you here. The point is to make sure that you're actually kind of keeping up with the material and that you're trying to study with the course. But if you say, hey, I just haven't had time to get to this material, and there's one discussion board that's actually a little bit ahead of where you would be, that's fine. Type for attendance. I'll sit back and say, okay, give you a 0 for it just because you haven't answered the question. But if you decide the day before the final exam you're going to answer all the discussion boards that you put for attendance for, that's fine. I'm not going to take any points off of that. It was a wasted opportunity for you to do the discussion boards, but this is kind of your education. Like, you can do it is what works best for you. But if you're not answering the discussion boards, the thing is that you're considered not present in the course and you can't make up the attendance. So if you're consistently missing discussion boards and not doing them, I have to withdraw you from the course for not attending the course. So again, if you need to, just save the for attendance in a Word or text document and just copy and paste it for the discussion boards and you can get back to them. That's fine. But between the discussion boards and the announcements, you're going to get a feel for where you should be in the course. And I've tried to kind of paste those discussion boards and the announcements for where they should be. Now, all 5 exams are online, but the 5th one is proctored in person. So for the 4 online, we're going to try proctoring software. I can't guarantee you it'll be in place for the first one, though, and the reason I can't guarantee you is that they've redone Blackboard. This was a change they made between the spring and summer semester. Still trying to work out the kinks of how to do the browser lockout, but for the exams, you're allowed your notes, you're allowed a calculator, periodic table. The only thing I'm going to say is that you can't use the book and online notes simply because when it comes to browser lockouts, you're only going to have the one window open. So make sure you got the notes, and if you want to print out the notes, you can use that. If you are so inclined, you can print out the book. You can do that. But generally speaking, there's no got-yous with these exams. I really couldn't stand that in college. I can't stand it as an instructor. If you do the homework and you do those packets that are online, you're going to see a lot of the same flavors of those questions show up on the exams. They're not the exact same questions, but they're definitely the same concepts presented in a very similar fashion. So there's going to be nothing out of left field on any of these exams. If you've been keeping up with the homework and the packets, you're going to do just fine on the exams. Again, homeworks are meant to be harder than the exams because if you can do a hard problem, you can definitely do an easy problem. But again, these are going to be online. You've got Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to do them. If you sit back, even if you have an emergency over the weekend, you need to contact me during the exam period to let me know, an email, something. Because what happens is right now by default, Sunday night at midnight when the exam is over, the key releases the following Monday. So if you email me Monday saying, hey, I wasn't able to take the exam, keys are already out. I can't give you a makeup because I can't guarantee you haven't seen what the answers are yet. But if you email during me like a Friday or Saturday or Sunday and say like, hey, you know, I've got sick, I've had something come up, I can't make it, I can extend the deadline for when that key gets released so you can make the makeup exam. Now, exams need to be documented. So you just can't say, oh, I'm not feeling well, I can't take the exam. You need to go to the emergency room, pay the $25 for the copay, do whatever it takes. I need a doctor's note. And the reason I need a doctor's note from you or some independent third-party verification is if we get audited. Courses do occasionally get audited. If we say, well, this one student got to make this up, why didn't any of the others? And I say, well, they told me they were sick. Well, how do you know they were sick? If you have the documentation, just some independent third-party verification, you can go look in the syllabus to find this information. Fine, I will give you extension. But you have to provide me with documentation or I can't. It looks like favoritism if I give you an extension and you haven't provided any justification for that extension. And generally, I will try to work with you. The final exam is the only one that's going to be proctored at the ELTC. That said, I've already had students email me saying like, hey, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it because they've actually given me like work excuses, medical excuses, things like that. If you provide me with that documentation prior to the final, you can take it online. We'll just use proctoring services instead. But again, I need the documentation. This is preferred to be, we would prefer if this was proctored in person at the ELTC. ELTC, you're going to need to sign up for, but there'll be more information about that coming as we get towards the final exam. Homework grades and lab grades, I'll try to stay on top of. To be honest with you, Webassign is really clunky for this. So it might be every 2 weeks I'm upgrading your lab grades. Your homework grades, I'm not inclined to update just because you can see those in Webassign. They're also only worth 2.5%. At the end of the semester, I drop the homework assignment that hurts you the worst, not necessarily your lowest grade. The reason I say this, there's one assignment that pretty much all students drop, which is the balancing redox. It's a lengthy 40-point beast. It's got 8 problems. It's really hard. Students usually go, I'm learning a lot, but this is a lot of effort for low reward. And typically that's the one I drop. But that said, homework's only worth 2.5%. So I think those are the big ones I've got covered. I've got the chat up in case anybody's got any questions. Unless there's really any objection, typically what I do during this hour is that if nothing's being asked, I've got a banjo. I'm trying to learn claw hammer and all the different styles of. So I figured it was more interesting to at least hear me playing the claw hammer in the background than it was for me to just stare at a blank screen and respond to emails. So I see there's 3 concurrent viewers. If you got any questions, please feel free to post them. It looks like I got a couple emails. Do we need to purchase an access code for Webassign? No, actually, we were able to get a federal grant, and that basically made all your Webassign free. So if you go right now to the course website, there's a course link that says Webassign on the left side of the page. Click on that. That should take you right to the first homework. And again, when it comes to the homework, keep in mind it's only worth 2.5% of your grade in the course. So if you do absolutely no homework in this course, which is not something I encourage, but if you do absolutely no homework, it brings you down to a 97.5 in the course. So when it comes to homework, particularly if you miss an assignment, go back, try to understand the assignment, but don't freak out about it. If it's really that much, if one assignment is really a difference between you getting an A or a B, I'll give you the A in the course. It's more of a, right now this course is more of a reflection of your test grades. Yeah, you're welcome. For lesson videos, do we just watch all the videos under test one? Yeah, that will cover everything. So, yeah, again, if you go under lessons, under the test one folder, if you can't see stuff, if you haven't taken the course entry quiz, we've set the course up in such a way that you can't access anything until you've taken the course entry quiz. So after you take course entry quiz, go under lessons, you'll find a long playlist. You'll see that there's actually, because this is a continuation of Chem 1, there's some review as well. You don't need to watch the review unless you're feeling really rusty about the topics that are in there. I think Lewis theory is the big one that it goes back over. But definitely with, actually I can bring it up right now. Yes, everything under that playlist is covered on exam 1, and it should cover everything that's going to be on exam 1. Oops. Always worried that I didn't load everything up there. Yep, crystals and crystal density, intermolecular forces, and colligative properties. And then the Pearson video is kind of optional. It's kind of also building on those crystals and crystal densities, but definitely those bottom 4 playlists are worth watching. And there's 4 under crystal density, 10 under phase diagrams, and 14 under IMFs. Next lesson videos. So not quite sure about your questions. So this videos will be marked test 2. Because some videos are shared between multiple playlists, the playlists aren't necessarily labeled by the exam. But definitely when test 2 opens up, you'll see a whole playlist for videos that are for that as well. Okay, so when it says test 1 general concept solutions test 1, it's referring to that this is all for exam 1. So what's going to happen throughout the semester is that the previous homeworks are still going to be visible. And it can kind of get daunting that you see this big long list. So it's meant to kind of help you give you rapid access. We're still on the test 1 material, so everything that says test 1 needs to be completed by June 10th. After June 10th, the test 2 material will show up. You will still be able to see the test 1 homework, so you can go back through it and redo the problems if you want to. But it makes it easier to see what questions are supposed to be done for the second exam. So that's like making it easy to see which homeworks you should be currently working on. Right, yeah, you're welcome. And definitely if you go to my channel, like there is a whole list of playlists that are by topics. So if there's something you need to go back to from Chemistry 1, you can look up the videos. You can search the individual videos, or you can look for playlists on a given topic. And for the test 2 playlists, I can go ahead and send you that right now. There's only one playlist, and it's simply because there's not so much review. Yeah, you're welcome. And with the kinetics and the rate laws, the last 3 videos aren't required. They're just kind of there for those who are curious. Oh, let me plug this into the local area network. It's starting to give me some issues with the wireless. So I'd recommend breaking it into manageable chunks. So don't watch all the videos at once. I would actually say download the packets. So under the lessons ribbon, there's a big big Word document with a whole bunch of practice problems in it. Start working through those, figure out which concepts you kind of know and understand, and then start watching the videos and watch the videos as they help you work through those sections. And then when you're feeling comfortable with the packets, because the packets, you can compare your answer to what's to the solution key that's already there, then start working through the Webassign as well. But I wouldn't say watch all the videos at once. That's a lot of information to absorb. I'd probably say like 3 or 4 videos. I mean, they're not that long, but they're also kind of information heavy. And the reason I would recommend you do that is it kind of frames the context of what you're hearing in the video. So if I just give you a video on intermolecular forces, that's great, but you don't really see how that information is going to be used. So if you open up those packets, you'll have questions like, okay, what intermolecular forces are present here? What has a higher boiling point? What has a lower boiling point? Now you're starting to see the context of the information. But I would definitely say look at the questions first so you understand the context of the information. Watch the videos and just kind of break the videos up over days with the area that you want to study in those packets. Those packets are actually broken into sections as well. One thing you're going to notice with the packets as well as the homeworks, the questions are meant to build in difficulty. So particularly with the homework, the first question is what I call a diagnostic question. If you're not getting the first question right, odds are it's probably actually formatting issues in Webassign. It probably has nothing to do with your understanding. You can tell pretty quick from your answer if it's a formatting issue. And then you start dealing with problems that get a little bit more complex. Same thing's true with the packets. The first questions you can probably do without a calculator, but definitely as you start moving on, they get more complicated. And the same thing with the discussion boards. If you see a question, you're like, I don't know an answer. Now you go to the playlist and say, okay, here's the video that covers that topic. You can see that you can watch the topic, and now you kind of see the frame. You kind of see the framing of why you're learning that information. You're welcome. Other questions out there? So you'll be provided with the formula sheets for the exams for certain pieces of information. So polyatomic ions are one thing I don't provide you with. My expectation is that you know how to do polyatomic ions, and that was kind of in the email I sent out saying this is what you should know. But with this colligative properties aspect, like KB, KF values, um, physical constants, you'll have a formula sheet that actually you can download and you can use. It's all available for you. I will Yeah, check the formula sheet. Let me actually see if I can look it up really quick. But there's definitely a formula sheet for this exam. Yep, so if you go to the lessons folder, there's a test one formula sheet. yeah, this has the physical properties, the physical constants. There is a formula for packing density. But formulas, generally speaking, I make you memorize the formulas. So, but yeah, there's a formula sheet provided for each exam. And let me just make sure. Yeah, so on the test one exam link, it also tells you test one reference sheet. So it'll actually give you a sheet that you can download prior to the exam and open up in Word that you can work with as well. And you can see the reference sheet before you take the exam. So it's actually on the link before you click it. Test 2, Test 3, and Test 4 don't have formula sheets, and the final exam has a formula sheet as well. But that Test 1 formula sheet that's in the lessons folder, it's the same one that's on the exam. It's provided on the exam link just to make it a little bit easier for you to find it when you go take the exam. Yeah, you're welcome. Some formulas, my view on it is for like the individual tests, it's reasonable to make you memorize certain formulas. The final exam, particularly what I like to do is I give these packets out in class. The review final exam packet is like a 1/4 inch thick. Y'all learned a lot. Most of these formulas you don't need to memorize, so they're kind of given back to you because the final exam has such a wide breadth of information on it. But especially with exam 2, which has a lot of kinetic models in it, I make you memorize the kinetic models, but there's like 8 or 9 formulas you have to memorize. And you'll kind of be able to tweeze out from the homework and from the packets what formulas are useful. Because you'll see, particularly with the packets, if you print out or work with them or just keep copies of them, you'll start seeing formulas pop up quite a bit. Other questions? Yes. So every week, 4 days a week, there is a live session. Mondays, it's 10 to 11. Monday and Wednesday, it's 10 to 11. Tuesday, Thursday, it's 11 to 12. Each week, when the announcement comes out, you'll get a link to each of the four live streams. Now, obviously, there's going to be exceptions if we have holidays, but yeah, every week you'll have these options. The attendance is not being taken in these live streams. If they're not doing you any good, you don't need to show up to them. They're going to be posted to the course website. I'm going to create a playlist after I get done here today. This will be posted underneath the lessons folder. But if you, for whatever reason, can't make it or don't want to make it and you would just rather watch it later, these live streams will be available on the course website. But yeah, 4 days a week unless we've got holidays, same times. And please feel free to email questions in advance. Treat it like it's office hours. I have no qualms going over homework problems. I have no problems going over topics, no problems going over packet problems. So if you're saying, hey, can you do this particular question in this particular homework set, I'll work it through and show what the answer is. Homework's only worth 2.5%. If I give you all the answers, it doesn't really affect your grade that much. Um, but it does kind of help you to see how it's worked out. I've got the whiteboard behind me. I've got the dry erase pen. We can work any problems you want. Usually I find the live streams pick up a lot the 2 days before the exam. So typically the live stream after the exams, I'm usually in here picking a banjo. Oh, you're welcome. You're also not required to stay for the full live streams as well. So, like, I've definitely sat through live streams where it was just me for an hour. Get rid of that note. And also, in case any of the concurrent viewers here aren't in the course, anyone's free to ask questions. This is not restricted just to my students. So if you happen to be a lurker that's from another course, another country, I get those all the time. Please feel free to ask questions. Go turn off my phone really quick, or at least put it on silent. guess while I gotta like go ahead and build the playlist. Yeah, you can kind of tell from like the silence here. This is why I started like practicing instruments during my live streams or like getting work done. See how a typical office hour actually works. Oh, sorry, I didn't see it. Are we allowed to ask questions in lecture material right now? Yeah, this is your time. Um, all I'm doing right now is just responding to emails. So yeah, please feel free to ask questions. Sorry, there's about a minute lag between when you ask something, when I see it, when it gets responded to. Look at the difference between an ion dipole force and ionic IMF. So an ionic INF requires there to actually be ions formed. So this thing like sodium chloride, this would be considered ionic because we literally have a positive sodium ion and a chlorine anion. Beneath this, let me make sure you can actually see it. The other extreme, we can have dipole-dipole. So dipole-dipole is going to have some type of strong electronegativity difference between two nonmetal atoms. So in this case, our chlorine is negative, and our carbon here is going to be positive. And so we get attraction between the negative chlorines and the positive carbons. Sorry, that might be a little hard to see. Yeah, let me write that a little bit clearer. So for dipole-dipole, in this case we have monochloromethane. The chlorine here is negative because it's more electronegative than carbon. It's attracted to the positive carbon. Now bridging between the two of these we have hydrogen bonding. And hydrogen bonding kind of sits in a weird place in this pantheon. So we always talk about things being polar or non-polar. That's not true. Polarity is a spectrum. So we would consider something like this polar, and there are more polar molecules like water. So when it comes to water, we still see kind of this dipole-dipole interaction. So, let's do that wrong. Hydrogen and the oxygens are attracted to each other, but water does something that halogenated alkanes don't do, and that's hydrogen bonding. So what naturally happens in water, so we've got our H2O, we've got the hydrogen and the oxygen being attracted to each other. We also get dissociation of the water to give us hydroxide, and hydronium. So a majority of water here is going to undergo dipole-dipole interactions, but a fraction of the water, specifically 10 to the negative 7 molar, is going to dissociate to give us H3O plus and OH minus. And this is going to be ionic. So for most of the time, water looks like a dipole-dipole interaction, but part of the water is also acting like ionic. So this ionic dipole comes about purely from hydrogen bonding. When we have hydrogen bonding, we have a hydrogen atom being given to another atom. Typically it's oxygen, but it can be sulfur and nitrogen as well. And this will end up generating a positive ion and a negative ion, a cation and an anion. But this is a reversible reaction. The equilibrium definitely sits very much towards these molecules being neutral. But it's kind of that bridge between dipole, dipole, and ionic. It's stronger than dipole, dipole, but it's not as strong as ionic. So if you look at something like sodium chloride is a solid at room temperature. H2O here is a liquid at room temperature, and this chloromethane here is a gas. At least I'm pretty sure it's a gas. 90% certain it's a gas. There you are. You're welcome. All right, so that brings us to about noon. Again, thanks y'all for showing up. It really does help when there's like questions to be answered. Again, live streams are 4 days a week. If you can't make the live streams, feel free to email in advance and I'll answer your questions at the start. Otherwise, enjoy your long weekend. Sorry we're kind of starting on a Thursday, kind of getting like thrown into it. Oh, practical aspect of the course. Due dates. Technically, everything is due Thursday by 5 o'clock. I practically don't grade it until Monday morning. So if you do it over the weekend, we'll not consider that late. All right, I'll see you all next week.